I am once again asking for Stranger Things Season 4 promo material. Please. Howdy friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome, and I hope you enjoy my content. Today we're talking about Stranger Things, as you can see by my attempt at an 80s hair and makeup style. We're going for a rocker look, but I think it looks more like a discount grunge attempt, which isn't until the 90s. But I tried. And this is all because the Duffers won't give us any real updates on Season 4, and it's slowly killing me, and maybe if I talk about Stranger Things enough, I can personally manifest a Season 4 trailer sometime soon. So I'm going to talk about one of the more divisive characters of the show, Nancy Wheeler. And maybe she's not as divisive as I'm saying, but within the first few articles I read, people really seemed to either love her or totally hate her. And that was just for seasons 1 and 2, which I thought she was really well developed and well written in. It's her season 3 arc that made me really want to do this video. So this isn't gonna be a video of me dragging Nancy Wheeler's fictional little name through the mud because she dumped Steve for Jonathan or whatever. Though, rip to her, because if I was dating Steve Harrington, I just wouldn't dump him. It would be easy to take cheap shots at her character, but that's because for the most part, all the characters are well written in that they have flaws. You know, like how human beings tend to have. Like, I know it's shocking that I'm not a perfect, flawless person, but that's just how it is. Though I do think the problem with the way Nancy's character is written is that her flaws aren't really played as flaws, in that she doesn't suffer because of them or grow from them like many of the other characters do. And I think that's because of how many people, specifically white women, have adopted girl boss feminism into their lives. This is a series that I'm starting about looking into how girl boss feminism has influenced female characters in either their own canon characterization or within interpretations of their character. Personally, I think we see so much girl boss feminism in media because it's easier to manufacture a female character who is seemingly perfect and never has to face the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, all of the characters around her do just that. And quite frankly, it's not feminist or progressive or helpful. It's just counterproductive to make all female characters perfect, and frankly, it's lazy writing. The Duffers can do better, and I'm gonna explain why by starting off with what girl boss feminism is and where it comes from. So you may be asking yourself, what's a girl boss? Or maybe you're well versed and already know all the internet lingo us cool kids tend to use, but there's a few different specificities used within the word. So I'm gonna go with the second Urban Dictionary definition for this video, which is a person who co-opts popular feminist girl power rhetoric as a way to virtue signal to other neoliberals and shield themselves from criticism. A modern day example would be someone like Gwyneth Paltrow, who I wish was just known for her role on Glee or for being in the MCU. Instead, you probably know her for her vagina candles, and the Goop Show or Goop Lab company. I've never watched it, but looking at some of the fact checks that Rolling Stone did, Gwyneth Paltrow makes lots of bold claims, like that injecting plasma into your face can make you look more youthful, or that just running your hands over someone else can heal them. There's a whole article in Rolling Stone about this, and you should read it because it's just so funny from the audacity of the claims and the author's commentary. There's so much sass in there. Could feel it. It was great. I'm gonna link it below. And Gwyneth Paltrow does not face any real consequences, obviously. And she's making lots of money off of it despite how her claims could damage other people who actually trust her products and believe what she's saying, because some people believe everything they read on the internet. Which she's been fined for, but not an impactful amount, of course. real girl boss right there. So combining this mentality of girl bosses with feminism is very surface level and doesn't take a deeper look into the intricacies of feminism. It doesn't ask questions of intersectionality or how feminism should benefit women of color or how it should help queer or trans women. It ends up being about moving up in the world, specifically the corporate ladder. This is apparent as the term girl boss became popular in 2014 when Sophia Amoruso used it as the title of her autobiography in the same year. And I'm not going to get into the intricacies of this when there are so many other videos that explain the origins of girl boss and Sophia Amoruso and who she is, and this term as a whole as well. I'll link them below if you're interested. They're really good. Personally, I loved watching them. What's important here is that the term girl boss ends up shielding women in a more white-collar world from any real criticism, and they don't have to worry about how their actions might affect anyone else. Meanwhile, other women, usually white women, see this and decide to aspire to be it without thinking about how their actions could affect others as well. And look, we love to see some ambition, that's great, but we don't like to see people being rude and damaging their character to get there on this channel. Okay, I know you might be wondering what all of this has to do with Nancy Wheeler. Or you're already on the same wavelength as me, and if you are, we should be friends. In Season 3, the first chunk of Nancy's character arc is spent at the Hawkins Post with her boyfriend Jonathan. And the sexism she experienced at the workplace is not subtle. Really, it kind of read as almost too heavy-handed for me, in my opinion, but I've also had the fortune of never being treated that way in the workplace, so maybe it really is like that, or it could have been like that in the 80s, since, you know, wasn't alive during that time. But even from the start, the writers emphasize that Jonathan is treated better than Nancy. Granted, he spends most of his time on the job trying to develop photos, while Nancy barges into the room like the Kool-Aid man, so I doubt he talks to the guys in the newsroom very much in the first place. And there are some tweets about how people really wanted Nancy to stand up to her sexist bosses. That's totally understandable. And the part where she's bashing their heads in with a fire extinguisher, that was pretty cathartic to watch for her. However, Nancy and Jonathan are interns, which basically means you're the dirt on the reporter's shoes. She wasn't gonna get a big story that those guys were gonna like. Yes, partially because they were sexist and rude, but also because interns just don't really do that. But because this is a show and we gotta expand that plot, Nancy gets involved with a possible story. Which, that's fine, honestly. I don't mind that Nancy's breaking the rules and being brave or whatever. What I do mind is that she does this while dragging Jonathan into it as well. And it wouldn't be bad if Jonathan was ride or die about this situation, but it's pretty clear throughout the first part of the season that he's not cool with blatantly going against everything that their bosses told them not to do. If she did this all on her own in an attempt to get ahead, that's one thing, but she decided to pull someone else in on all of this with her. And while Mrs. Driscoll wasn't actually some 80-year-old schizophrenic or anything, they didn't know how credible she really was. I mean, I'll give Nancy some credit for dragging Jonathan along because it did give us the most iconic part of the season. Dare I say, the most iconic part of the whole show.
I just think there's something really wrong with this rap.
A masterpiece of comedy. But when she brings the story of rats eating fertilizer to the reporters in the writing room, she's laughed off and made fun of. Look, that sucks. It really does. And I'm not going to say that the whole prank with the rat thing isn't sexist. The whole point of this arc in the show is that it's sexist, and it's obvious that the point is that Nancy is meant to be in the right. And if you read into how the women and girls are treated this season, it is reminiscent of the Me Too movement, as it is pointed out by Eden Gordon in a Pop Dust article that I'll link below, because she does make some really great points about that, in my opinion. Where I think this message fell flat in Nancy's arc is the way that she didn't develop as a character from this. Which not all characters have to develop, but Nancy is obviously a main member of the ensemble cast and should develop during the season. Like, she follows the story and forces Jonathan to join even though he really gets to a point where he doesn't want to. And then they literally break into Mrs. Driscoll's house. And I understand why, I totally get it. However, you can't go directly against what your bosses ask of you in a job, then get caught, and then be shocked or angry when you get fired. I understand the want to continue pursuing a story like this, especially after all of the weird things that happen in seasons 1 and 2. And yes, I definitely think it falls in with Nancy's characterization. It's clear that she's a very proactive person, but when she acts as though she isn't in the wrong when she and Jonathan get fired is just silly. And I think that Jonathan's in the right to be irritated about the whole thing, because instead of apologizing for getting her boyfriend fired, you know, her boyfriend whose family has been shown to always have financial troubles to the point that he's had a job since season 1, she buckles down even further. And sure, she has every right to feel okay with not having the job because that was a risk she was willing to take. She's more than happy to not have to work for those men anymore, and they treated her like complete garbage, so I don't blame her. And that's great for her. But Jonathan needs a job, sweetie. Like, he points that out to her. Probably because he's worried about how Joyce's job at Melvald's could go away due to the plight of small businesses this season, which I talk about in my Stranger Things capitalism video. You should go watch it if you haven't. The point is, he didn't make the choice to risk getting fired. Nancy pushed him to go along with her. I'm not trying to say that their relationship's abusive or that this makes Nancy a horrible romantic partner. I am saying this is a character flaw of hers that never really gets addressed. She bulldozes through and does what she thinks is right without regard for how it will actually affect the people she cares about. This is fully hammered home by the fight she has with Jonathan. When he points out his financial situation and her privilege as someone in an upper middle class family, she dismisses it. Let me play some of that argument real quick.
I told you over and over to drop this story, that it was a bad idea, but you refused, and now I'm screwed.
It's a summer job, your life is hardly over.
I don't live in a 2-story house on Maple Street. My dad doesn't earn 6 figures. Hell, he isn't even around.
God, here comes the Oliver Twist routine.
Mortgage, college tuition. You know, they're real things, Nancy. Things that you don't care about only because you don't have to.
I didn't realize I lived in a bubble.
Well, you do!
So, from the way they argue, it sounds like they've talked about this stuff before. And I'm gonna drop a social justice bombshell on some of y'all here when I say this. But what divides us the most, at least as people in the US, isn't race or gender or religion or even political affiliation. It's class. The class divides in the US and in other places, but I'm gonna focus on the US since I live here, run really deep, and it's difficult to get out of those divides, as you can see with wealth distribution. It's more apparent now in 2021, since we can see with the pandemic, we had really, really high unemployment rates, while billionaires profited off of the pandemic and just got richer. When Nancy talks about how the job was humiliating, I can't help but think of Joyce. Joyce works at a corner store in Hawkins and has worked there for years. Do you think she didn't experience sexism or harassment in the workplace? She literally works in retail and has for a very long time. And this fight is fine to have. I think it's good to show that relationships aren't always perfect and need work and compromise. My problem with all of this is that Jonathan is the only one who apologizes. And he should apologize because he said some harsh things to Nancy. But Nancy dismissed his very real worries and she never learns from it. She doesn't learn that pushing people to do things you don't want to isn't okay, and that it can harm your loved ones and destroy relationships. She's rewarded by the narrative, and many people treat it as her being in the right. And I don't think it's any piece of media's job to give us moral values, especially if it's not like a children's show. But my problem is that I don't think the writers really noticed how shallow the story arc was, and how it's a disservice to Nancy's character, and that it left her kind of static this season. Well, what would you have done, Steph? You couldn't have possibly done better than the people who were actually paid to write the show. SMH my head. That's where you're wrong. I am an underrated talent, and the Duffers should hire me to help write Season 5. Just check out my AO3 and Tumblr credentials. No, this isn't just so I can learn the plot of Season 4. Okay, maybe it is, but I actually do have ideas about how to make this part of the show better. So, for one, the really easy fix would have just been for Nancy to apologize to Jonathan for dismissing his economic issues. Okay, my job here is done. Duffer Brothers, my address is... Okay, but I do think it would have been interesting to have Nancy talk to Joyce about workplace sexism if we're going to try and make that a part of Season 3. Let Nancy and Jonathan have the fight, let her be pushy and everything that happens for the first part of the 3rd season. I don't know where what I'm thinking of would fit into the plot of the season, but maybe have Nancy go to Joyce about her troubles because she doesn't know what to do about Jonathan, for example. And then we could have a more constructive conversation about class, have Nancy realize that she did push things too far, and of course she can still investigate and move the plot along since that's really important. But it would have been wiser for the writers to give this more nuance since they decided they wanted to throw in some feminism this season. But it would have been wiser for the writers to give this more nuance since they decided that they wanted to make feminism in the workplace a topic for this season. Instead of making it #girlboss hours for Nancy Wheeler, it could have been a chance for her character to really develop. I don't know where I would put this in exactly within all the episodes. Maybe I would have taken out Billy and Karen's really weird, almost cheating, flirty storyline that made me uncomfortable. I could definitely live without it. And I'm gonna be real, I wouldn't have used Billy very much at all this season. Dacre Montgomery's acting is fine. It's not a dig at him, but after Season 2, Billy's character is just unnecessary. And it shows, and his arc in Season 3 just... it doesn't make any sense, okay? But that's a topic for another day, my dudes. So, in conclusion, I am once again asking for Stranger Things Season 4 promo material. Please. All I'm working with are some blurry leaked photos and some vague videos and that Russian doll thing from like a month ago, and maybe a couple of vague interviews. But seriously, as much as I do love Season 3, and I really, really love it so much, I can't emphasize that enough, there are some parts of this season that just fell short, like with everything made ever. And this isn't a call out or me trying to cancel the show or a character or anyone or anything, really. I just think that this arc could have been handled with more nuance instead of just trying to make it a girl power type of moment. It was 2019 when the season was released, and we deserved better than service level feminism then, and we certainly deserve better feminist content now. If you enjoyed this, I really hope you'll like this video and maybe comment your thoughts as well. This is my second Stranger Things video, and if you missed my first one, there's going to be a link in the description, and you should go watch it. I don't know how many Stranger Things videos I'll do, probably a good amount. And after I wrote the script for this, an interview with Finn Wolfhard came out that we won't be getting Season 4 until next year. So maybe once I run out of some analysis content or hit a roadblock, I might do predictions for Season 4 with the Video Store Fridays list that came out a long time ago. I don't know for sure. Let me know if you would like to see that, and if that interests you, or if content along the lines of media analysis is up your alley, you should hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you can see what I come up with later. I hope you have a great rest of your morning, day, or night. Bye.